And
we are recording, so over to you.
Okay, so good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Dawlish Town Council Finance and General Purposes Committee on today, 29th of April 2021. Normal rubric applies. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched to silent or switched off. Public participation. Do we have any members of the public present this evening, please, Mr. Clark?
None present at the moment, and I'm not aware of anybody coming to the meeting either.
Okay, so I know we have a grant application. Are they not here?
I've not been advised that they're coming. No.
Okay. It is always preferable to have people come to speak to their grant, I feel. Okay, let's get going then. Apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies presented?
I've not received any, Chairman.
Okay, we have an apology from Councillor James.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Agreement between agendas parts 1 and 2. I don't think we have a part 2, so
no.
Part 1. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest this evening? Stunning silence. No. Dispensations. I presume no dispensation.
None received, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting. To approve and sign the minutes of the FMGP meeting on the 23rd of March. That's right. 23rd of March 2021. Does anybody have any comments on the meeting, on the minutes, or
no?
No, in which case I propose that I sign them off and approve them.
Second. Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Petherick. All in favour, please.
Thank you.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. We have a larger grant request from the Dawlish Lawn Tennis Club. I did read it through, but I don't recall if it was a councillor present who signed it off who would like to talk to it. And we don't have the people here at all. No.
No, Chairman, they're not in the waiting room either.
Okay.
Val's got her hand up.
Councillor Moorhood.
I would just like to say something about it, if I may. I don't have an interest in the club, but it happens that I met the applicant and brother fairly recently. I was trying to find out about youngsters and sports facilities. This is the first time I believe that they've ever made such an application. I did try to leave a message on the phone. I only realized today to say that they could join in, but I don't know whether they understand that. I was talking to them just generally. It was through a father and daughter that they said, oh yes, they're the people who run it. So I had a chat and I was absolutely astonished at the work that they do there.
Yeah.
They're hands-on. They do, well, they just do everything in their own time, their own paintbrushes, it's all their own work, basically. I was astounded. I had always assumed that Timbridge maintained everything. They don't. And it's mainly these two brothers, and they run all these sports things for all the youngsters, and that the teens, the younger ones from just a few years up. And they were saying about what they did, and they've got these projects on, and they've got to save up to do the lights, and then they've got to do something else. And at the moment they were doing some work to the clubhouse. And I said, well, did you realize that the council does have a grant funding system? Have a look on the website. So I'm really pleased that they've applied. I'm only surprised that they haven't asked for more, to be honest. If you saw what they do there, I was really taken aback, and so glad that people do all this volunteer work for our youngsters who've suffered just as much as oldies like me in the last year or two, and they need all the excitement and activity that they can get. I would have hoped they would have asked for more, to be honest. If you look through the figures, well, I've looked through these figures since, and I can see that they are constantly, by the look of it, battling to raise the money for the next thing that they have to do because it's a repairing lease. Sorry, I don't know them personally. I just happened to meet them that day, and I just wanted to say something in support of them. As I say, I'm just surprised it's not more than that. I would have, obviously I couldn't tell them what to do, so, and I couldn't make suggestions. I would have hoped they would have asked for a bit more, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We have next Councillor Linda Petherick.
Yes, I agree with Val. I think we should support this grant. This is very much like the bowling club, all the hard work that they do, and we gave them a grant. So I would like to propose that we pass this grant and say thank you to them for everything that they do. Because young children, older people, it keeps everybody fit. So I'd like to support this grant.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor John Petherick, I think, is next on the list.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think it's all been said, actually. I'm also in full agreement. I've never played tennis myself because I don't think I could have jumped over the net if I'd won. So it's not a thing that I've done. But I really appreciate what they do. They're based out at Sandy Lane, and the ages range from 3 right through to 70. And I think recently I was having a coffee at wherever, because other cafes are available, I guess, and bumped into 2 people who are well into their 70s, and they play quite regularly. So I'm happy to second Councillor Petherick's proposal for this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Foden.
Thank you. Yes, I really support this grant application. I think it's excellent that we do have a tennis association here in Dawlish, and one reason that I support this grant application and funding for their future is that I like to think that one day the next Andy Murray will hail from Dawlish, and the next Wimbledon champion will be a local person from Dawlish. So I fully support this grant.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tamlin.
Yeah, I fully support it as well. I thought the application form itself was really good, very full, very informative, very well done, actually. So I certainly support it, and I agree with everyone else. I also agree with Councillor Moorhood to say perhaps we could consider a larger grant.
I'd like to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Terry Lowther.
That was the point I was going to make, actually. I've seen them, I've met them very briefly. I don't pretend to know anything about the club, but I'm impressed. Everybody else is so impressed, and the 2 have now said that perhaps we also increase the grant. If more of us are of a mind, what sort of figure would we think is appropriate? Those of us with experience.
2.
Would you go as far as 2,000?
That's what I'd be thinking.
Well, I mean, it does sound as though they're a splendid bunch. So, yeah, I'm prepared to support this to the extent of granting £2,000.
I'd be happy to second that.
Good.
Okay, so are we technically, I suppose that would be an amendment, unless Councillors Petherick, you'd like to absorb that into your main proposal. So the main proposal,
that's fine.
Have £2,000. Okay.
Good.
Councillor Mary Lowther, you have your hand up patiently.
Thank you. And I'm just getting in to say that I have met them, and each year since we've had Dawlish Celebrates Carnival, they have always joined in. So, you know, they put on things, activities for the children with tennis and that, and I think it's all free. So they are extremely good. So I would definitely support it.
Excellent. Excellent. Sounds almost like unanimous praise. So certainly I know a number of people who go along on a regular basis and thoroughly enjoy it. And I think if we can support the facilities as in the need. Does anybody else wish to say anything on this grant request? Councillor Lynn GB.
Very quickly, it's all been said really. I just think it's a wonderful club. I remember hearing about them, reading about them when they were playing themselves, and now they've become the grand dams, so to speak, of the club, and it's something we should be very proud of in Dawlish. And I agree with Councillor Foden about our Wimbledon kind of champion to be, but I just think it's a wonderful project that keeping people fit, and it's brilliant.
Wouldn't it be good to have a champion tennis player from Dawlish to go along with the famous footballer from Newton Abbot?
There you go.
And news, of course.
So, oh, and of course, yes, Muse.
Mhm.
Yes, indeed. Right, so if there's no other comments, can we go to a vote? Can I see all hands in favour of approving the proposal for £2,000 to the Lawn Tennis Club? That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Splendid. So let's flick back to the agenda. So item number 7. We have an issue to deal with unspent grant funds. In April 2020, Open Door issued a grant of £500. There is some £330.66 of that unspent. We are asked to consider a couple of options as to what to do with that, whether to allow Open Door to disperse it, or whether to request that it is returned to the town council. I'd just like to start on this one. I do feel quite strongly that the town council gives out grants for particular things, not out of largesse, for particular purposes and support services and explicit events. And I think that the principle that is that if that event were cancelled, or if that purpose were changed, or if there is money left over, that money should be returned to the council. So I would like to start off by proposing that we have it, we request it returned, and set that up as our basic sort of principle in these areas. We have a host of hands. I think we have.
No, you're all doing this.
Going first. I'm going to ask the clerk if you can make me co-host, because then that allows me to see the hands on the screen rather than having to look to one side. I can instantly see who's.
Yeah, bear with me, Chairman.
Thank you very much. But in the meantime, Andrew, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. It was just to say that a suggestion was made that obviously the Open Door were quite an integral part of the Helping Dawlish collaboration. And one suggestion that came forward was whether the committee would be minded to distribute those funds to that effort to support the projects that they're currently undertaking for the parish. But that was just one option for you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor John Petherick, I think you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just for clarification, really, I agree with what you've said, but was this money originally given to Open Door by the Mayor? She raised it in her charity. Is that where it originated from, or is it a subsequent grant from us?
My understanding is that it was a grant given by delegated decision in April 2020, as opposed to from the Mayor's charity, because I think you're right. If it had been from the Mayor's charity, that would be a different matter altogether.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Linda Petherick.
Excuse me, I was actually going to suggest what the town clerk had suggested, that maybe we donate it to Helping Dawlish, because we're so heavily involved in that maybe that would be a good home for it. I don't mind which way it goes, but I do think Helping Dawlish would be a good thing.
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Goodman-Bradbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been some news in the newspaper or on Nub News, I think it was today, concerning Open Door. And I think the trustees of the Methodist Church have decided to open up for coffee again. Not that they're going to be the Open Door anymore. I understand that's changed. So I certainly would encourage, if they are looking to get involved and do something, then perhaps, you know, it would be right that we do take the money back and either direct it towards Helping Dawlish, or perhaps put it back into the pot for other applicants to actually go towards. I think it's the right thing to do. It might be at a later stage that the trustees decide to make a grant application further down the line, depending on what direction of travel they take. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Terry Lowther, I think you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as you know, I'm obviously keen on doing things on the principle of the thing. And the principle of the grant system that we have is that people come along and say, we need X amount of money to do X things. And we say, well, why do you need that much? And they explain to us and all that sort of stuff. And when it's spent, it's spent. We don't make grants on the basis of, well, you know, there's a X £100 and you spend it as you want. And if you find you've got a bit left, well, you can spend it on something else or whatever. If the money is left over, I feel it should be returned to the council. Redispersed elsewhere by any means, but I think it ought to be transparent rather than just leave it as a lump of money that can go anywhere. I think we ought to have it back and redisperse it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Valmore-Hood.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understand what you're talking about in principle. And if we were talking of a reasonably large sum of money, I think it would be absolutely vital. But the way I look at it, it's a small amount, which doesn't mean a lot to our grant fund by putting it back in, but would mean a great deal to something like Helping Dawlish, because it would be spread to people who need the help, which is ongoing and something which the council has been supporting. So I can see what you mean. And in most cases, or virtually any other situation, I would agree with that. I just happen to feel that with this one, since we've got this overall Helping Dawlish scheme going, that it would seem less Scrooge-like, if you like, to divert it to that, where a few £100 makes a big difference.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mary Lowther, and then I'll just have a quick word and I'll bring you back in, Councillor Terry Lowther.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
I just listening through to all, I support the idea of it going back into the pot for Helping Dawlish, because to me, this is where the money goes with Open Door to Dawlish people. So it's just going in through another door.
Agreed.
I support that.
Thank you very much. If councillors could keep themselves on mute if they're not actually talking at the time, that would be helpful. Thank you. I would suggest that rather than immediately diverting it to Helping Dawlish, since we have a budget item for contributing to Helping Dawlish anyhow, I would suggest that it comes back into the town, and whilst it may be allocated to that budget item, we then ask for an item to come forward to this committee perhaps next month to determine where Helping Dawlish is and to see what its level of funds are like and what it actually needs, because it may need more than £330 or it may not need it at all. And if we can do that, then we can give it the money that it needs to do what it needs to do, as opposed to arbitrarily giving it the 330. But I fully support the idea that it should come back and perhaps be put into that budget to support that. Councillor Terry Lowther.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think that's right. The principle is a principle, and it doesn't really matter whether it's £3,000 or £300 or £30,000. It should come back to the council to be redistributed, and the cost recorded.
Okay, thank you. So my original proposal was that it come back to the council. I'd like to amend that. That's not been seconded yet. I'd like to amend that it comes back to the council and be credited to the budget line for Helping Dawlish, and that we ask for a report on Helping Dawlish to determine what it needs in terms of funds.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or thoughts? No, in which case, can I see a show of hands for that proposal, please?
Thank you, Chairman. It's unanimous.
Thank you very much indeed. Rattling on through them today. Cockwood School grant feedback. To note the feedback given in the attached newsletter. The newsletter looks very nice. It's a nice little piece in there acknowledging the monies that we gave them for the phonics books. So it's very nice to see. So I hope it's very effective. I think we just need to note that. Would any councillors like to say anything? No. Can I see a show of hands, please, to note that? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Yes. The last two, which are the tricky ones. Ex-Estuary Management Partnership contribution. To recommend to the full Town Council whether to continue membership with the Ex-Estuary Partnership with a contribution for 2021-22 of £2,575. I asked for this to come onto the agenda tonight because when we were looking at the budgets, we were having discussions about whether we felt that the Ex-Estuary Management Partnership was something that we should still be supporting at the level at which we are. I was a little bit concerned, and my concern was increased when I saw the levels of funding from other partnerships. Now, the Ex-Estuary Management Partnership does an awful lot of good stuff. It's great, but we don't get a lot of say in what it's doing. I'm just trying to find the right part of the notes, sorry. But I'm a little concerned. If I read this right, it looks like Dawlish Town Council is paying more than Teignbridge District Council. Looks like we are the fifth or sixth highest funder of this particular organisation, and we don't get a seat on the management committee of it. It's now run by a committee that we don't actually have the opportunity to be on it. We are, as far as I can see, treated as I wouldn't say second class, but we are treated as a smaller organisation whilst we are contributing in the larger range of funds. I don't know what other people think.
Chairman, if I may, on the back of the agenda item coming before you, I did contact the officer that's responsible for administering the Ex-Estuary Management Partnership. And if I could just read a tiny bit from his email to me. He says the EEMP funding strategy identifies minimum target contributions for the various different categories of member organisations. The funding contribution currently offered by Teignbridge District Council is significantly below the target for local authorities, which is regrettable, particularly in the light of the apparent discrepancy in the contributions provided by some others. They have on several occasions been asked to consider whether this figure might be raised, but as yet that hasn't happened. And based on the existing structure of the partnership, the recommended minimum amounts for funding partners should ideally be county and district authorities, 6,500, statutory agencies, 2,500, town councils, 2,500, parish councils, 500, and other organisations and fundus owners, £1,000. So I just wanted to make you aware of that they actually they're looking for 6,500, but they're quite considerably coming in under that for whatever reason Teignbridge has taken that for.
Thank you very much. And before I invite Councillor John Petherick to speak, so they are saying that our recommended contribution is 2,500, and yet they are asking us for 2,575.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify that. Councillor John Petherick.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was a little confused about this one. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of reading, which I've endeavoured to go through. Do you know what their total operating costs are? Because if we're paying 2,500, and I believe there are 7 other groups that contribute to this, I mean, their operating costs must be really quite considerable. I wonder where the rest of the money comes from.
So Councillor Lowther and I have sort of shared, sitting on this outside body from time to time. The past sort of 2 or 3 have been less informative, but a few years ago, we used to meet in County Hall and go through and look at the budgets and things. The essence of the costs is principally the salary of one officer. It has been. Quite what it is now, I'm not entirely clear because we don't get that same level of detail. Other costs they've found through grants and through raising money with events and different bits and pieces and doing things. But I find this one a little bit strange at the moment in terms of the way it's set out, and I certainly would have difficulty in recommending that we continued certainly at that level of contribution compared to you know, other organizations funding it. There is a list on page, I think it's page 71 of the report, which is page 127 in your bundle, which is Appendix 1, which gives a list of the partners for the financial year 21-22 and their respective contributions. So you've got people like the Bishop's Clist Parish Council, yeah, contributing 100, British Canoeing a couple of hundred, the Star Cross I think is on there as well, 258, Teambridge at 2,500, Exeter City Council at 3,090, East Devon District Council at the 6,500 number, yeah, Devon at 9,000, and ourselves at 2,575. So to me, that this is an anomaly that we should not continue. I think there are 2 separate questions. One is, do we wish to continue contributing towards the ex-estuary management partnership? Are we convinced of its value for money? I'm not convinced of the letter that I wrote, that I read, that started off by saying everybody knows it's great value for money. These are the great things that we do. Well, we don't know it's value for money. That's why we're asking the question.
Chairman, could I just come back, please? I was asking about the other parties, and I can see that now. You directed me to the page. I mean, I accept that we have a degree of responsibility here because a large stretch of the ex-estuary is actually within our parish, isn't it? I mean, Dawlish, Warren, right through to the other side of Cockwood. But when I see the others that are contributing towards this is Teambridge are contributing, and also Devon County. I mean, that's like a double or treble taxation on us, isn't it? Because we're contributing to Teambridge, which are then passing our money on to the ex-estuary, as indeed our county. So I do wonder whether we should continue with this, quite frankly.
I think the question has to be asked.
Yeah.
I certainly think at the level of 2,500, it seems disproportionate for our stretch of the X.
If I may, Chairman, the list that I read out from the email from the officer, that was the suggested minimum levels, which is why we're paying, I guess, £75 more than the minimum. However, as you can see, others are considerably lower than what they would be expected to pay and are still members of the partnership. So if members were so minded to continue membership, it would appear reasonable that you could do so at a considerably lesser amount, if that was the way you wanted to go as well.
Thank you. I'd be interested to hear the thoughts of Councillor Terry Lowther, who's also been along to many of these meetings.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think that this the answer that we pay was agreed, 10 years ago maybe, and it was the going rate, if you like, but at the lower level, as the clerk says, it was the bottom of the range for our classification, if you like. And may I ask the clerk, are we not membership of the management committee? We were.
I don't believe so. We get invited to the meetings, but there is a hierarchy. I'm just trying to look on their webpage now, but I don't believe we're a voting member.
No, I think we were when we were. That can be investigated.
If I may, Councillor Lowther, there was a change in the structure about 3 years ago when they introduced an executive committee which had a 5 or 6 person membership.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And as I recall, Dawlish Town Council was not part of that.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's return to the basic question. Then, should we be a member, and is it worth it? Is the money worth it? I believe we should be a member, as Councillor Pedrick says. There's a lot of the X in our parish. The Dawlish water and the rest of it is an important part about waterway. And we need to know what's going on. We need to influence what's going on, and sometimes just a word in the ear of one of the local people makes a difference. You know, as you know, it does often go through at the Secretariat. It's the contact that matters. Whether it should be 2,500, I don't know. I'm damned if I know why it should be 2,575. That seems a funny number, particularly if Timbridge are only paying 2,500. But yeah, why is that? I don't know. We could argue about how much it should be. I have to think that it's, leaving aside Councillor Pedrick's comments about triple taxation, which is an interesting point. I happen to think that 2,500 is not excessive for an influence over a very important international waterway and sanctuary and SSSI or whatever it's called. We should be part of things that are done to protect that or not protect it, whatever the case may be. And while we might not be on the management committees, I thought we were, we still have the opportunity to influence, if it's only just by being there and saying things when they need to be said. So I think we're part of it. I wouldn't argue about a reduction because it looks as though other people have done that, and why should we be purer than the pure? But I wouldn't know which number you want to go to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If I just bring the Town Clerk in, I think he's his hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarification, in terms of membership and what we have a vote on, we are members of the Partnership Committee, which is in effect like the full council of the partnership, which sets the strategic direction, and we have a vote on that. There is then the executive, which is the operational and technical lead for the partnership, and there is one representative of funding town and parish councils, which is traditionally a rep from Exmouth Town Council taking that role.
Okay.
So we have a vote on the Management Partnership Committee, but we are, if you like, represented by Exmouth Town Council on the Executive Committee.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for that.
Councillor Linda Pedrick.
After hearing the Town Clerk say we do have a vote on part of it, maybe we should pay the money for this year, but the reps that are on it, if they really look at it for the next 12 months and come back next year with a good report on what we do or don't get out of it and whether it is worth it, because as a lot of it is in our area, we do need to be part of it.
Yes, if I may just come in for a very quick comment. Last year, of course, has been very different. So the sort of influence effect has been greatly lessened. You can't really walk up to somebody and say, I've just heard such and such a thing. Can you help us with it or whatever it is? You know, the clubby sort of atmosphere, which is missing during these Zoom things. So yes, it would be a good idea to just let it run for a bit and see how it goes, perhaps, as you say, over next year.
Thank you. Councillor Mary Lowther. You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I remember when I was CAC chair, we started this back up again. At one time we were with it and then we went out, but it wasn't the partly, it wasn't this one that altered 3 years ago. And we used to get quite a good report back. There was somebody, as from I remember, there was somebody from Timbridge that used to go and represent Timbridge. And then there was a couple from Dawlish that regularly went to meetings, and we did have influence. Now this partnership, if it's only kind of 3 years old, but I still feel I agree with Councillor Petherick and Councillor Lambert that we should remain with this, and at least for 12 months, and let us see. But if we have somebody going to represent us, I think we should get a really report from them. We find that lots of people are on outside bodies, I will refer to them, and they don't really report back to the council. So I often wonder why they're on the outside bodies. So I think that if we do this, whoever is chosen or volunteers to go, volunteers also to give us a decent report on the comings and goings of the association.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
John Petherick, then Councillor Valmore-Hood.
Thank you, Chairman. Having listened to the discussion on this, yes, I've sort of seen it in a slightly different complexion. And Councillor Lowther's comments about the fact that we've actually been through a pandemic and it's been a very difficult year for everybody. I mean, I do feel that we should continue for this year, as others have said, and I would like to propose that, please, we continue with the existing current payment of 2,575, but we certainly give it some serious consideration in the year's time, whether we continue or not with it, or perhaps reduce it. So I would like to propose that, please.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Valmore-Hood.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're in a position where we have to carry on with it, at least for the time being, but I would like to see by this time next year, or before then, if we get a report from representatives, I'd like a breakdown of how they arrive at these contributions. Is it based on local precepts, local population numbers? How do they arrive at them? I think that would help us to see more clearly why our contribution seems to be quite high compared with some others. It may be quite justified, but I haven't seen anywhere where it shows us how they actually work these out. And I think we ought to know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And anybody else want to talk on this? No, I mean, I personally think that probably keeping it going for a year and seeing where we go and considering in depth next year is the right action. I think that was what we discussed in the budgetary commission, budgetary group as a potential. I think quite sensible. I would like to suggest, however, that we do point out to the organisation that there is a massive discrepancy in what we are paying compared to similar town councils of similar size. Exmouth, of course, famously is what, 4 times our size? Isn't it the largest town, and certainly the largest town in Devon? I'm not sure it's the largest.
Yes, precepting authority in town council, it is the largest in Devon. Yes.
Yeah, and it's something like 40,000 people, isn't it?
It's quite large.
So it's significantly larger than us. So there does seem to be a discrepancy in what we are paying, and I would suggest that we sort of put that back to the organisation and say that we will be considering where we stand next year. If I may tack that onto your proposal, was it Councillor John Petherick made the proposal? Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments from anybody? Thank you very much for that useful debate. Can I see a show of hands, please, in favour of the proposal? I think
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we now come on to our, what I think is our final item on the agenda, which is, oh no, it's two items.
Penultimate item.
Penultimate item, thank you, which is about a new server cabinet. Now, I'm slightly curious as to what the need is for this and why we need such an expensive new piece of equipment. And if it is so expensive, what's wrong with the old one and can't we fix it?
Chairman, if I may, the quote refers to the oh, interestingly, have you not got a picture with your paperwork of what it is to resolve?
Yeah.
Oh yes, there we go.
So basically, these what you see before you on Councillor John Petherick's screen, but probably in your agenda packs as well. One piece of equipment is our main server, together with the backup UPS power supply, which would kick in the event of a power failure. The other one is, sorry, Chairman.
Sorry, Clark. Would councillors mind if I shared that on the screen for you?
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should be able to see that now.
Yep.
There we are. Yes, so what you have there, bottom left, if you like, is the main file server together with its backup power supply. On the right-hand side is the virtual server, which enables working from home. And on the floor next to that is the office telephone system, which allows us to take our calls, our office calls, at home as well, including our IP phone system in the office. Now, as you can see, we've got a bit of spaghetti junction there, not to mention a severe health and safety risk, a fire risk. We've actually had our fire risk assessment today, and it has naturally been highlighted as a point of concern. And this cabinet would effectively put all of that into one space with a lockable door, tidy everything up, improve the space around the administration officer's desk, and just make it generally safer. In terms of the quotation that we've received, the email I got with it is that they've sourced the most cost-effective cabinet, and that is reflected in the cost. If members were minded to approve it, there would be a lead time of 2 to 3 weeks. They would be happy to source from other outlets, but because of the nature of home working now, there is a lead time on these things because people have done upgrades to their office working, be that at home or in offices. So 2 to 3 weeks based on the quote before you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for drawing our attention to the picture, which has
That's okay.
Completely changed my mind, and I'd like to propose from the chair that we go ahead with this. But I do have a couple of questions on the invoice itself, and I think a lot of people have put their hands up to speak. So Councillor John Petherick, I think you were first.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at the high value equipment and that's going to be in this cabinet, and the heat that it could probably generate as well, does it have a fire suppression system if it just bursts into flames? Or does the whole building go up?
Well, it would be contained, first of all, it would be contained within the cabinet. They are built to a set standard in terms of housing electronic equipment that can generate heat. We are talking a cabinet with server racking that bits and pieces can be mounted to it. We then obviously have our office fire system, fire alarms. So from that point of view, there would be no concern. I don't know if members can recall from when they've been in the office, if you were to look above the reception hatch, there is a small network cabinet attached to the wall. So we're talking something very similar to that, but that's freestanding on the floor as opposed to mounted to the wall.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Val Morhood, you were next.
Thank you, Chair. Similar thought came into my mind. I would just like assurance that this is a purpose-built cabinet which would take into account ventilation versus fire danger because of the heat generated.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a specified networking cabinet built for air ventilation and everything else that comes along with it. So as you can see, there are 2 shelves within it. There's the 800 by 1000 glass door on the front, which is lockable as well. And then it comes with all of the other bits and pieces that we require to operate that equipment as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Alison Foden, then Councillor Terry Lowther.
Thank you, Chair. I totally support this funding, and if it hasn't already, if I've missed it, then I'm happy to second your proposal that we approve this.
Councillor Terry Lowther.
Presumably, thank you. The quote includes fitting and all that sort of thing. So the complete job, supply and fit.
Yes, Chairman. If the second part of the quotation, you've got installation and configuration there, and so the quote does include that as well.
Okay, thank you. A quick one on. I don't expect a long answer, but we've just been talking about accidental fire damage and all that sort of thing. If that thing catches fire and we got lots of valuable data, where does that download to? Does it download to somewhere outside the building?
We do have a backup to the cloud of our servers in their entirety, as well as a local backup as well. So in effect, we've got 3 versions of our data concurrently operating at the same time.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
No.
Okay, we have a proposal that's been seconded. Can I see hands in favour of the proposal, please?
Thank you very much.
That's unanimous, and please don't trip in the office until put into place.
Don't go in.
Good thing there's only one of you in the office at a time, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Trip but don't claim.
Okay, right. Coming back up, I think we have a final item, which is, I think, Councillor John Petherick's bank reconciliation. How's that going, Councillor John Petherick?
Well, I've actually spent quite a time today actually going through the reconciliations, checking them in fine detail, and I can confirm that they're all correct, accurate and correct, and I've signed them all off.
And I can confirm that I've got those signed documents with me, Chairman.
And we can sleep soundly in our beds tonight now, knowing that, can't we? Yes.
Oh, Mr. Patrick.
It does save us a fair amount of confusion. I remember when we tried to look through these documents and work out what was going on in committee, it wasn't helpful. So thank you again for that independent signing off of those things. Can I see a show of hands, please, to note that the bank reconciliation has been forwarded to the appointed sign off, and it has been done. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And I think that brings us to the end of our meeting. 49 minutes. Fantastic.
Hey.
Efficiency personified. Thank you very much, team. That's been